And welcome back. Our final conversation for the morning is with the president of the Belize Volleyball Association. Joining us via Zoom is Alan Sharp, and our discussion for this segment has to do with the reopening of sporting disciplines. Good morning, Mr. Sharp.
Hey, good morning, Isanego. Good morning, Malene. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, we note that the Volleyball Association and the athletes who fall under this particular umbrella have been vocal about trying to get government to be able to allow for a return to this particular sporting activity. Let's begin there, Mr. Sharp. What has it been like in terms of this particular journey for you guys to get government to, kind of give some relief in terms of resuming sporting activities?
Well, let me just start by saying we are very appreciative of what the government has done in reducing the numbers, have changed the methodology, the approach, and have gotten the COVID numbers down in our beloved country. Excellent job. I think where we're at right now, the way that we're hoping that it will turn out is that obviously very soon in the next SI, hopefully, some sports or all sports in some manner will be opened. We do know, we at the Belize Volleyball have been communicating either by text, by phone, and even by letters and emails with the powers that be to try and explain our side and how we believe that sport can be open. And I want to give my kudos to Minister Kevin Bernard, the ex-National Sports Director, Oscar Arnold, who did put a lot into trying to get all the necessary documentation, protocols from the different federations on how we can possibly open. We cannot open sport just, everybody go ahead and just play sports.
Yeah.
That can't happen. The same way how there's control over the way the restaurants operate,
Yeah.
or how the casinos operate, sports must have protocols. And so we have been in communication with all our international bodies to try and get their information and try to learn how they are operating throughout the world, even different countries. We've been in touch with some countries to see how they are handling it.
Alan, if you allow me there, that's a key distinction to make about what advocacy we saw leading up to this particular commitment. It was not so much people clamoring to say they wanted recreational sports back, but what you had were the professional athletes in this country, these persons who represent us internationally and must train to compete internationally, coming forward from various sports actually, to say they would like the opportunity to train. Why do you think that this was perhaps an unaddressed area for so long? Because we saw the Jaguars going out and playing a home game in another country where they couldn't even legally practice here in Belize. That's football, of course.
Yes, and I want to say that, unfortunately, not all of us see sports in the same way. But I think one key area that might be overlooked right now by the powers that be is that volleyball, football, and some other sports have athletes that have to compete internationally. I want to give you some key areas that are important to us and why we're trying to push. One key area is that, as you saw the other day, we had 2 athletes get signed up by a university.
Yeah.
And that's using video from last year. We have at least 3 other athletes, maybe more right now, but we need actual game footage. We need to promote these players. These are opportunities to go to university. Brighton himself was supposed to go away in January. It moved to June or later on this year. but he needs to be in condition. Otherwise, he'll go there and they'll just send him back home after a month or so because he won't be in volleyball shape.
Yeah.
I'm not talking running physical shape, is to be at the level that you need to be. And we have other athletes who are trying to get out in scholarships. We have other athletes that are trying to get out to play on the professional leagues in Mexico and in other leagues. But we can't, they cannot even begin to have that opportunity if we're not having some type of closed, strict protocol training. Beach volleyball for us is very key at the moment as well. We're trying to qualify to the Birmingham Games, which is in 2022. We're ranked 8th in the Commonwealth on this side of the world. We need to get to 5. And we just missed out on golden opportunities in going to Cancun, which had 3 World Tour tournaments back to back to back. And we couldn't go because we were not training. These are opportunities when the athletes are seen by the world, seen by international coaches, seen by international clubs, and get these opportunities to play. And if you allow me, let me just touch another area. I think people think that in sports we employ nobody. And yes, we may not employ hundreds of people like other big organizations, but right now we have coaches in volleyball that are selling food to try and make it through since last year. They can't get employment, they can't do their job. One club that has about 6 coaches, they're doing their best to try and hold on to their coaches. We have other part-time coaches in other sports that are just struggling to try and make it through because, well, there's no employment. Without sports, there's no employment. And some people might say I'm stretching it a bit, but I'll go further. Without everything rolling in place, even all the other side small economies side items that go along with sports, all the referees, all the people that sell food to us, all of that has gone out the door. Our national team, normally we bring in players, they stay at places where we pay to stay. All of that has been lost. But like I said, the bigger picture for me is the opportunities. We have athletes right now in their prime, and this is their one time. You're only young once. And we're on I don't mean to say it in this way, but volleyball is on a roll. We've had a number of athletes get opportunities, and COVID has come and put a big damper. So all we're asking is, and again, I want to say that we fully understand, we appreciate all that's been done and is being done. And we're saying, let's try and get our athletes vaccinated. Let's try and follow very strict protocols and let our top athletes, let's start with the top athletes.
What are some of those protocols? I know that you have put forward, what you intend to do once you've been given this opportunity to resume operations. What are some of those measures?
Well, our ones are, if I can just give you a summary, our ones are very basic. First of all, we must be very clear and transparent communication with our athletes to know the symptoms, and they must report if they or anybody in their immediate household or anybody they're in close contact with has been exposed to COVID. So that's the first and very important part. And then after that, we follow the protocols which are done internationally right now, which is we clean equipment before and after practice. Everybody uses the face mask once they're not actually physically playing. We don't allow any, in the past, especially in volleyball, we have a lot of personal touching of, high five or jump up together when celebrating.
Yeah.
Well, we don't allow any of that now. Even at the, in volleyball, at the beginning of everything, you try to greet, you have these huddles where there's no huddle anymore. Everybody has to be spaced out. So we and then everybody has to sanitize before and after. They have to bring change of
Let's step
clothes.
in there quickly, Alan, if you allow me to jump in with something here. You're talking about not being allowed to, celebrate in a manner, or huddle for that matter. How does this stand to affect the player psychologically or the team psychologically? You know how if you score a point, you're rewarded, there's a celebration that kind of encourages you. If you're saying because of the pandemic situation and the nature of COVID-19, we can't allow that anymore, what effect does this have on the team mentally?
Well, everything is in training, but I'm not saying they won't celebrate him. I'm saying they won't celebrate by in touching. So, for example, in what we're seeing internationally, I'm sure our players will do the same, is that when there's a big point, they come to like within 3 feet each of each other and do the same high five, but no touch. They do the same,
The socially distant version, right?
Yes, exactly. So
wow.
I think, and players and people become very creative. We see, people touching feet now. Instead of high five, they touch feet. We see people do a lot of different moves like that. But I think that the key thing is that we plan to follow everything that even the Ministry of Health and Wellness would want us to do.
So the Ministry of Health is reviewing your protocols?
Well, we have sent it to them on more than one occasion. I know they're looking at it closely. I know that they're going to do everything they can. We all have to understand, as president of the volleyball, of us, and anybody who's in sport, that obviously the health of our nation and of our people is first. And so I'm sure they're weighing that against opening the national athlete. What we're saying is that having an athlete in a beach volleyball court or having an athlete at an open court playing 6-on-6 or an athlete in a gym that's well ventilated for 2 hours for practice is less risky.
Yeah.
It's less risk than, I love the casinos, but that's an enclosed space. The offices, you're in an office for 8 hours using the same photocopier, passing paper, talking to each other.
It seems that was the turning point for athletes to speak out when they saw that the casinos were given allowance, but athletes weren't given a chance as yet. So let's talk about what you have been able to get government to agree to so far. The vaccination for athletes, that's going to happen?
Well, what they did, which I think is even better, they went ahead and said, you can show for a vaccine and they basically won't turn you back. But obviously, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has its constraints.
Yeah.
We have asked for our athletes to be vaccinated. Again, informally, we know that we can send our athletes to go get vaccinated now because apparently they're allowing everyone to go in and be vaccinated. We have spoken to them about the advantage of doing that. You see, there are two main advantages of having the athletes vaccinated. One is the obvious, they will be vaccinated, so there's less chance of them getting the virus. And when they go abroad, they don't have to be as concerned about what happens, the mental stress of catching.
Or even if they're playing COVID. When they start practicing,
Right. And then the second one is, I think it's a great opportunity to do promotion. Many countries, not a few, but many countries are using their athletes to show the public, see these guys, they're taking the vaccine and they publicize them. So we are offering that to try and get to get as many people vaccinated, because to make the vaccinations work for Belize, most of us, if not all of us, have to become vaccinated. So we need to try and push that, and I think we can do that with athletes. And I want to say one more thing there, Isani and Marlene.
Sure.
Right now, on the international circuits, countries have not yet forced that you must be vaccinated, but with every day they're getting closer and closer to it. So for example, what you see happening is that in Central America, they have a meeting almost every week, and they discuss, well, because the country has not yet managed to get the vaccines out to everybody, they're not going to force it yet, but they're asking each country to ask that their athletes be vaccinated. As soon as that is close enough, they will definitely then tell the athletes to participate in tournament, you have to be vaccinated. Right now, they're asking for either vaccination or PCR tests.
Okay.
But that's getting closer and closer. So, getting vaccinated is important for the athletes and for everyone for that matter.
Now, what's the perhaps either level of excitement or interest being garnered among members of the Volleyball Association, considering that the government is carefully reviewing this with a view to allow you guys to return to training?
Well, the excitement is very, very high. The expectations are very, very high, as Marlene said just now. That's, I think most athletes anticipated would have happened in the last SI change. Mm-hmm. So when that didn't happen, well, some athletes from many different sports took it onto themselves to make a complaint. I know that we and other sports are communicating with the authorities. We are doing our part. And again, I want to say thanks to Minister Bernard, we know he's been doing his part. And we know it's a very hard decision for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. But we think right now with the numbers of where the country is, and extremely important is to have the protocols in place and to follow protocols. Yeah. And this is not only for volleyball, for the different sports as well.
For all the sports, yeah.
Right. The key here, just like how they're trying to move the economy by having restaurants open and the different places open, but you must stick to protocol. What's going to hurt us is if we don't follow protocol, and that's in every day. If we're going to go to the supermarket and talk to your friend without your mask properly on, or do any of these things, that's what's going to hurt us and make everything get closed again, sports being the first. So we need to follow the proper protocols. We need to have strict protocols in place, and the police or whoever needs to come by and make sure, or Ministry of Health and Wellness, make sure that we're following those protocols. It's very important. And I mean, sports, I mentioned some of the areas just now in sports that I said that I think people are overlooking. Yeah. But that's not even mentioning the items or those areas that sport play an important role in our society. Right now, with schools being closed, or with us being in offline or everything being online, with children being at home, we need to have more things to be motivated to do. I can tell you that and I can be open with you that in volleyball, we have had some athletes who are at the peak of their athletic life in their late 20s, early 30s. That's when you're at your peak. And after COVID, and at least at the moment, they're saying, look, I don't think I'll continue with the national team. The motivation has been lost. Yeah. Then we have young ones. There's nothing to motivate the young athlete. Yeah. My daughter plays volleyball, and she's not, I can say the motivation is low.
Yeah.
So we
have such high expectations when they represent us internationally, and that can only come with enough practice and training. So yes. I think that's one of the things that we neglect to think of when we have all these high expectations and hopes on our players. Alan, so the conversation this week is about finalizing those protocols with the hope that May 1st, athletes and professional associations can resume training?
Well, I mean, like I said, we won't count our chickens before they hatch.
Yeah.
We saw where Kevin Bernard, Minister Kevin Bernard, posted, that they're working hard to try and get sports opened up.
Yeah.
And so we look forward to sports being open. We look forward to our national players, male, female, beach volleyball, indoor volleyball, being able to get back to try and get into shape.
Yeah.
We have a lot of international tournaments this year that we hope to attend. As you know, we have been doing well, and we don't want to lose those ranking points that can get us to the next level. Or I think right here at the end of June, no, in May, in May we may have to send some players all the way to Europe if we can get visa.
Yeah.
Then we have a tournament in end of June in Dominican Republic to try and qualify for the Junior Pan American Games in Cali in September. And then we have all the indoor championships between September and December. And you need, well, ideally you need to be practicing minimum a year, but we would definitely like to have, as much time as we can now to prepare.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that under strict protocols, we can open. I'm hoping that, once we get going, that we can also go internationally and represent well. It's going to be tough this year with not being able to practice. All our neighboring countries have been practicing, and some of them even have tournaments.
All right. So we gotta quickly wrap up our show this morning. Any final words from you, Mr. Sharp?
Well, I want to thank you again for the opportunity. I want to say that we thank the government for bringing down the numbers of COVID totally, and we look forward to trying to open sports and after that continue to work together to make sports a major part of everything we do in Belize, from the economy to development of youth and all the positives. I would be here for another hour that we're telling all the positives that sports bring to society.
Well, thank you for keeping us posted. We appreciate it, and of course, best of luck and continue to stay safe.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.